Welcome back to DreamHack Montreal, and we are in the middle of round number 3. In fact, we're quite a long way through round number 3. That took quite a while, but we're not at the end of it yet. We are going to go across to Orange and Swidz, and to help me dissect that match is going to be, again, Dr. J. I
am a doctor, so dissecting is a part of my resume, so I'm glad you really introduced me that way. I can really get into the depth of the analysis that these games can bring.
And how do you feel this will go? Have you seen anything about the decks? I think we've got much information, but Swidz is doing okay, I think.
Yeah, I believe Swidz is doing so well. If I remember correctly, Swidz is currently up 2-0 over Orange. You see right there, Orange has lost with his Druid, which I would presume to be some kind of Malagos Druid. Orange is very proficient with that deck. And we also see him losing with his Warrior, so he's going to have his Warlock left over. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Swidz queued that Warrior first.
Yeah.
Hit maybe...
It might even be dead man. Swidz likes slow and interesting decks. He's known for it.
Yeah, both Rogues banned out. I wouldn't be surprised if those are both Quest Rogues. And they looked very similar lineups, but I believe we're getting straight into game number 3.
Awesome. Let's see how the two Europeans getting on here. Not have many Europeans this time around. Swidz, one of the most underrated, and he is actually on that even lock by the look of it. One of the most underrated players. I think if you speak to anyone from France about who the best player in France is, Swidz's name will come up in the conversation a lot of the time. He was their top point earner in the HCG qualifications, equal with Calax. And
it's impressive.
He actually got the captaincy, or the anchor, as they call it, by countback, because he had more points in 2016.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's very impressive to be that consistent with the points. And we see, you know, the even Warlock, it makes sense that it did fairly strong against Orange's lineup. It appears as if, you know, Swidz might have gotten it first into, say, the Warrior or the Druid. And with that, the Druid, if they don't have the Naturalize and you play that early Giant, you almost every time win the game on the spot.
It's interesting that Orange has now got a 50-50, so he took a favored matchup and lost it in game number 2.
The issue is, did he really have a favorable against that?
Or did he just hate the rest of the lineups, yeah.
Exactly, because if it is Token Druid, and he did queue that first, and then he lost that one, well, the next best matchup is either the 50-50 or the Warrior. And he might just feel as if the Warrior, you know, doesn't have a chance against the other decks, depending on what they are. And right now, being able to play a Giant, looking pretty strong right
You know what's better than being able to play a Giant? Being able to play 2 Giants. And Swidz has got the tempo by being first Giant on board. And he has that beautiful situation where Orange is likely to have to trade in, and you can hit him with a second Giant as well.
I think I'll raise you one more. You know what's even better than playing 2 Giants?
Go on.
Being able to play your second Giant and then coin out a Vulgar Homunculus and hit Orange in the face to set up lethal in the following turn.
That seemed good. He's got a Hooked Reaver against Orange's Hooked Reaver.
I mean,
Orange is going to be able to play his Hooked Reaver first at this rate. That's an advantage.
I guess that's something to look forward to, but honestly, this game could be over in the next 2 turns. If Swidz goes for playing his Giant and then coining out the Vulgar Homunculus to protect his own Giant and then swinging that Giant face, it puts Orange to 14 health. Orange then doesn't have the greatest way to answer besides Spellbreakering the Vulgar Homunculus just to trade.
And I know this is a mirror match, but they really have got almost identical hands here. It's absolutely ridiculous. But Swidz is in a position where he has all of the tempo on his side.
If I'm Swidz right here, I would love to see the Giant coin Homunculus and make sure next couple turns awkward slightly, but you force Orange to have a Spellbreaker to trade, a Hellfire to trade, or a Hooked Reaver to die.
And then you just lob out a Twilight Drake.
And then you just play anything, and you're back to winning the game because Orange is forced to be put on the back foot. That's something that Vulgar Homunculus, although it is very underspoken in this matchup, it is the most important tool for protecting your own Giant from getting a trade in.
That's how old Token Druid used to work, isn't it? Just 1-6 taunts and a bunch of little guys, and so no one can get to your little guys. These aren't little guys, though. These are massive, big 8-8 monstrous guys.
And I love this play from Swidz here. I believe this game is just about over as soon as it started. I mean, what can Orange do? He can use the Spellstone to clean up the Vulgar Homunculus with the Ooze. He can play a Hooked Reaver and then hope there's no Spellbreaker from Swidz's side. He can lose.
Yeah, I mean, you draw both your Giants and you can't play the second one because you're facing down death.
I think the only real thing that Swidz can, or Orange can do here is play out his own giant, take a value trade, push the Ooze face, and then taunt up both the giants.
Yeah.
Just hoping that the giants have to trade in.
And they might. There's no Spellstone available, so.
Shields up.
I mean, the crazy thing about this, though, is
silence. Yeah.
There's no silence available. The crazy thing about this, however, is that if you're Orange, you're forfeiting over board initiative straight back to Swidz. If he has any impactful play, he just immediately makes it, trades into these two giants, and then you're stuck in a very similar position where you don't have the board.
However, having said all that, he doesn't have much of an impactful play available.
Yeah, I think the most impactful play is playing a Twilight Drake. But right now, both giants are gone. The largest minion that either player can play is either a Dread Infernal or a Twilight Drake.
And they both have those minions available.
Exactly. Or Hooked Reaver, because they will be in the range. Not quite Gigante level, but...
Really ridiculous start here for both players. And this is where, if Orange has stabilized and he's on the edge of that, the game can become incredibly long and drawn out. And Orange does have Gul'dan and Swidz does not.
Although Swidz didn't have, the best follow-up to show for that play that he made with the giant, and he was forced to trade off two giants, I still like that play from Swidz.
He wins a lot of the time.
Because not only does he win a lot of times, but you force your opponent to have those two cards. And when they use those two cards, those cards aren't threats anymore. I
mean, he can still get the Spellbreaker as well in that turn and still just put Orange on 6 and win the game from there. And it was definitely good. But the game is now back in the balance.
And Orange will be able to seize the board state if he chooses to do so. Could opt to Spellbreaker this Twilight Drake. And after doing so, he has the board state now. But that's pretty weak to Hellfire. And Hellfire typically doesn't get too much value in this matchup.
Is Black Knight still common, do you know? On ladder in particular? I suppose it's more common on ladder because there's more to worry about, but in a tournament, maybe not.
I would say that the Black Knight has fallen off quite a bit because Taunt Druid is no longer a very prevalent thing. But, I mean, Black Knight is still a very powerful card, especially in matchups like this. It's almost like another Spellbreaker-esque effect.
Yeah, if you see these guys not playing their Hooked Reavers, it's because they're scared of Black Knights.
Yes.
We don't have the deck list in front of us as it's the backup match, but if you do see weirdness, that's because that's in the deck. But usually now it's a Geist instead.
Yeah, typically it's the Geist just to, answer, say, Shudderwock Shamans that are running Earth Shock, or just being able to answer, Rogues, Cold Bloods, and such.
Both players are going to go awfully low here, but you have to in this deck. And again, it's Orange in the box seat in a way because of having Gul'dan, and of course he's got the tempo on his side, he has the board. And we might see Swidz here just have to play a Swamp Ooze to try and get his own mini board back.
Hellfire Swamp Ooze, just the play of champions.
Play of champions, play of innkeepers.
Play of innkeepers.
Except the innkeeper would play the Swamp Ooze first.
Don't insult my main man, the innkeeper, like that, okay?
Oh, he's got a good in. I quite like it, but sometimes he makes some.
If it wasn't for that in, we wouldn't have a place to play Hearthstone.
This is true. It is true indeed.
You know what? You're not welcome by the hearth anymore, Lorinda. Insulting.
I'm sorry.
My main man, the innkeeper, like that.
I don't know. We invite you in, and then just take over the place.
Looking at the lists right now, and actually from Swidz, it's very interesting. We don't currently see it in the hand, but he's running a Nerubian Unraveler.
Okay.
His Even Warlock. I think that's probably a nod to something like Token Druid or Quest Rogue, even though Quest Rogue typically gets banned out.
He does like his unique style, does Swidz.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting choice. They're both running Bone Mare. Very similar lists across the board. I think that's one of the major differences is that one option right there. And this is where using the coin makes the game state a little awkward for Swidz. He took that calculated risk. He's currently up 2-0. He can afford to do that risk. Because even if he loses this one, he's going to have his pick at a counter queue, which, it may not be the best counter queue, but he still has two other options. So taking that calculated risk.
The two decks that Orange has already lost with is slightly worrying. We've just seen that happen once with one deck cleaning all the way through.
Neither of these players run the Black Knight, though, so...
Yeah, that means the Hooked Reaver is a much easier play when it's time to play it. Double Hooked Reaver is one of the best plays you can make in this deck. But Orange is powering up those spell stones, and Swidz is only going to be powering up 1 spell stone. And he's actually not going to be powering up any because his turn is messier than that.
So right now, I think Swidz can afford to tap if he goes for the Spellstone line of play. But Swidz is going to be really thinking whether, you know, he'd rather play the Hooked Reaver to try and set up lethal on the following turn. But Orange could just have some kind of Spellstone to, you know,
yeah, his own lethal.
Yes, exactly.
And with that in mind, this is just giving you that extra layer of protection against such messes. And again, setting up his own lethal.
Yeah, that's lethal for Orange. Can just go ahead and Hellfire off the board. Can then use the Spellstone to clean up that minion, push that damage through. And Orange, it was looking scary for him quite a bit. I will say, Swidz made a very risky, calculated play that I think most of the time would get rewarded.
I don't think it was that risky. I think it was a very good play, and Orange also had the same hand as Swidz. How often do you both have both giants?
Very seldomly.
So he just wins on turn 6 so often there. But Orange hanging on in there. And Orange only seems to have 2 modes in big tournaments. 0-3 drop or top 16.
To be honest, those are 2 good modes to have.
Yeah, you'd rather that than keep going 6-3, 5-4, 6-3, 5-4. Never quite get there.
Yeah, it's always those, you know, players that, you know, they are consistent, but sometimes they just have those tournaments where they flop. And with Orange being a very consistent player, but having tournaments where they flop, and we can see right here, Swidz is rocking that Dead Man's Hand Warrior.
I called it and I didn't know. He just loves this deck. He's played this on and off for, along with like Odemian, for the, I don't know, a year and a half, since Dead Man's Hand came out.
And the reason to play this deck over the Odd Warrior deck is because this deck will not lose to Token Druid. Odd Warrior, we saw earlier, lose to Token Druid because it didn't have a way to answer the board state.
Plus you can sleep at night. Can you really sleep at night if you play Odd Warrior? Can you live with yourself?
I sleep just fine.
You're a bad person.
I'll take my finishes on ladder.
I thought you were a good cop.
That was a running joke. I was going to be a good cop for the event. I told Firebat he needed to be bad cop.
But to do that, you'd have to have dressed the same, and no one would have done that. Right, so Swidz has just got to survive for the 397 turns it takes him for Orange to fatigue to death. Have a quick look through who is in round 4. Maybe later.
We'll find out later. I think that's appropriate.
As we are only in round 3.
I'm really glad they had that ready for, you know, when a Dead Man's Hand Warrior is on the screen.
Next up, round 5 players.
Yeah, exactly. Might as well put on the whole list at that point, just predictions.
Now, predictions is something I enjoy.
I do enjoy predictions. Not really much that Orange can do here. Just going to keep the life tapping up.
Do you think Swidz is digging in for a long game with this mouse moving, by the way?
I think it's just a habit of Hearthstone players is they come from potentially other card games. And in other card games, you have that, you know...
Shuffle your cards.
Exactly.
Stuff.
You have the physical cards with you a lot of the times, which is something that makes Hearthstone very unique, is just that addition of, you know, being able to do that. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if the admins just told him to stop clicking.
One thing I've always liked about how Hearthstone is designed, it takes advantage of the fact it is a digital card game.
Yes.
So some of the random effects are available because of that.
That is one of the coolest parts. I'm starting to make a song with the clicking.
Yeah?
Lorinda.
Did you ever release your Shudderwock song with Admirable from Austin? You made a really good Shudderwock song.
I think it was Admirable that made the Shudderwock song.
Oh, okay.
And I just kind of went with it and said, this is a great song.
It doesn't surprise me because Admirable does make great songs.
You actually see Swidz there. That's a very important keynote to talk about. He doesn't swing with the Cornered Sentry because he doesn't want to enable Hooked Reaver earlier than it potentially can be. Because one of the ways you lose is by not having answers to the Giant, so he has an answer for the Giant, but then allowing Orange to just get away with playing a cheap, large minion.
Yeah, and the way you win isn't by killing your opponent in any time soon, it's just by running them out of stuff.
That is literally the only way this Warrior deck can win. is by running them out of cards.
And when they're drawing quite a lot of cards and going for as much tempo as possible, they're going to have quite a lot of stuff to get through.
See there, Swidz has, you know, not the greatest of hands right now, but it's going to get him there in the long run. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing either Giggling Inventor come out here just to kind of contest the board state a little bit, or maybe fitting in some hero powers just to make sure that Shield Slam is active for a potential play on the later turns.
Yeah, we do need to remember, because we've seen so much Odd Warrior, that this is not Odd Warrior. The hero powers are not completely insane, so you do need to get more of them in there. And
one thing that not being Odd Warrior, though, does provide is that we were talking about those matchups earlier, Token Druid. It's one of those matchups where Odd Warrior can be fragile and lose that matchup. Swidz's deck and the Dead Man's Hand Warrior is not going to be fragile and lose that matchup. You save one war path, you've cleared an entire board state.
Yeah.
You have a Brawl, you cleared an entire board state. You have an Insert Warrior card here, you most likely cleared the entire board state.
Yeah. Gem-Studded Golem, fantastic at just clearing board states.
What card?
I don't know, Gem-Studded Golem, I don't know what it's called.
It clears board states.
5/9 thing.
I think it is the Gem-Studded Golem.
Oh yeah, I got a card name right.
I don't even know what card I heard. I'm still in Muzzy land.
I do start to slur after long series sometimes, it's been known. Importantly here for Orange is he does have that Gul'dan. When you're talking a game, we talked about damage earlier and how it can add up. You're talking about a game that's going to go many, many turns. That hero power is one of the best in the game, if not the best.
And to be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if Orange tries to save onto this coin just with the intent to coin Gul'dan.
Really?
Because getting Gul'dan down as early as possible is, you know, one of the ways you win.
And that hero power does beat this one.
Yes.
It's not like the tank up, where you have to wait till fatigue until it's better. That one just clean beats this one at all times.
See the life tap there. Just gonna go ahead and play out that Vulgar Homunculus. Wants to get himself down to a life total. That way, not only the spell stones are upgraded, but he can play Hooked Reaver as quickly as possible.
One of the great things here is Swidz does have the option to draw cards if he wants. It's not one of those matchups where nobody draws a card because they don't want to go to fatigue first. Orange is forced to draw cards to try and make his cards better. That's how Giants work. That's how Twilight Drakes work. And Swidz on the other side of it, therefore can draw cards himself.
I mean, one of the most awkward things about this new Dead Man's Hand Warrior, and one of the reasons it hasn't been brought to the forefront in many tournaments, is because it typically ran Cold Light Oracle in the past. Yeah. And when you would go off with Dead Man's Hand, you would make sure to get the Cold Light Oracle on board. You would shuffle the Cold Light Oracles back in. That way you constantly had a steady draw of not only taking your opponent to that fatigue route and drawing them cards, but also making sure that you constantly had access to those answers. Now with the current Dead Man's Hand Warrior, since Cold Light Oracle is rotated to the wild format, you really have to be finicky with how you draw cards. You have Acolyte of Pain, but if you're using it too aggressively and you don't have that sustain and card draw, shuffling your hand back in doesn't do you much unless you have cards to draw it.
Yeah, Maverick notably did DreamHack Tour with this deck since the Cold Light Oracles have gone. Maverick, obviously, honorary Frenchman from Belgium, but we always make that comment every time.
What is it with players from France bringing Dead Man's Warrior?
I mean,
because I know Calaxes has brought it to the past. And I believe Odemian is also...
Odemian plays it a lot. I mean, I think it's his fault. But Swidz is... I mean, Swidz... This Demon was going to Germany and Swidz memed him by making him play Mechathune Priest, because this Demon couldn't prepare because he was on like vacation and qualified at an awkward time. And Swidz just gave him a lineup which included the Mechathune Priest without Hemet. Just this like really slow draw your deck version of the deck.
That seems
He got
awful.
to the quarterfinals.
Really?
It was awful. The deck was horrendous.
Imagine just putting a Hemet in it. That would have changed so much.
Yeah, it was just a different version of the combo entirely. But yeah, it's just, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so the French community is what I'm saying is pretty close-knit and a little bit meme-ridden.
It is kind of nice to see that community grow, though.
Oh, they're
really
so
great.
strong. Like,
they are very strong Hearthstone players.
Season 1, you needed more points to get into their HGG team than you did to get into playoffs.
That's insane.
Think about that for a moment.
That is insane.
8 slots available for HGG. They had like 13 players or something crazy in playoff Season 1. And they're on a mission because Season 2, they only got 6 players in playoffs. And they are Embarrassed is putting it a bit strong, but they are determined to show, look, we're better than that. 6 is just not what we do.
It's actually interesting to see the Azalina in this list.
Azalina's just good right now.
Azalina is a very strong card, so I actually like to see it in a list. It's just, it's not something you would expect, right? Because the Azalina works against
what you're doing.
The deck is trying to do. But Azalina is another one of those cards. There's a lot of cards like this in Hearthstone where you run the card not because it can provide some, you know, crazy power play, but because when you're about to lose a game, you have that chance to get back in the game. We've seen cards like that in the past with Yogg-Saron, and then cards like Azalina.
Azalina is interesting in this for me as well because Control Warrior decks in general end up with a lot of dead cards. They don't know which the dead cards are going to be until they see the matchup, which is why they're in the deck. But Azalina just goes, okay, we've reached the point in the game where all my cards are garbage. Let's have an entire handful of different garbage that I can possibly use.
And why not just Dead Man's Hand their deck?
Yeah.
Might as well.
Oh, just hope they're not playing like Archbishops and stuff.
What if they're also playing Dead Man's Hand Warrior?
Yeah.
And then you get their Azalina, and then you Dead Man's Hand their Azalina.
Then would be here a while.
We're finding ways to make an infinite game go even longer.
Yeah, let's not do that.
I didn't know you could go past infinity.
Let's make it sound like it's going to be quick. Right, Orange. He's only about 10 turns from a really good lethal. I can see it now.
Glad you can see it. I'm still looking for it.
Maybe I miscounted. Oh, yeah, it's not lethal. There's that 4 I forgot.
Does have a clean turn here for Swidz. Could opt to go for that Blood Razor execute. I think Swidz is going to want to save the Brawl for the Gul'dan board state and potentially save that execute for, say, another Giant.
Yeah,
but
remember,
this is just too clean here.
Every card he uses is a card he can't deadman, and he's used an execute already, used a Blood Razor already. So he wants to look after these cards so he can get more of them for later. But obviously there is no later if you die. That could be an issue.
Wise man once said, you cannot continue playing the game if your health is at 0.
Usually.
Probably the Innkeeper.
Yeah, probably the Innkeeper. He's used to it.
You are really bashing on the Innkeeper.
Yeah, I haven't done that for a while, actually.
What did the Innkeeper do to hurt you?
He just beats me too often, so I have to, like...
The Innkeeper beats you?
Get my own back when he can't defend himself. And what do you do, man? He's got a hero power that makes these 1/1 dudes, and I just can't kill them. I've got dragons and everything in the deck, and he just hits me with these 1/1s.
Lorinda, don't you worry. After this series, we will go and beat the Innkeeper finally. I will help you.
They'll be making puzzles next, and then I'll get really into trouble.
I won't help you with the puzzles. That's cheating.
Yeah, that's just
the Innkeeper, that's a different story.
Yeah. Keep saying I must attack the minion with taunt. I want to attack different minions. Not that one.
You are a true Hunter player.
He's a cheat. I'm sure he makes the rules up as he goes. Anyway.
He does.
There's a game of high-level Hearthstone on the screens, I'm sure. Got Dr. J here to explain to me why it's high-level. Why is it high-level, Jay?
These players are phenomenal players.
That's pretty much the answer I was looking for.
Now, Swidz here with the pickup of, you know, both these players, we've been kind of joking a lot, but both these players have just been making, you know, respective turns. What Orange is trying to do right now is he's trying to bait out removal through these not as healthy threats as he typically would like to, and then say at the end of the day he can go life tap, Hooked Reaver, now your removal's gone, your executes are gone, you didn't shuffle them back into the deck, you were forced to brawl a board state you didn't want to, and Swidz is trying to say, hey look, I'm not going to waste my removal on 2 6/6s.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Because that's a lot of damage.
But it makes a lot of sense. You want to save that removal as long as possible. That way you can ultimately have the removal for those large threats that you're not going to have an answer to.
But Orange wins this round, and Swidz is just like, you know what? What have you got? What you've been saving? Oh, you got to go down. And you were going to play it next turn. This is why he's Azalated on turn 9.
I actually love that recognition from Swidz, because he recognized that the most powerful play Orange can make next turn is Gul'dan.
And you have one chance to get Gul'dan.
Yes.
And then it's gone, because Orange will slam it the second he gets
it. And if both players have Gul'dan, the one with Dead Man's Hand is going to take it longer than the one without Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah, seems good. And how do you get tempo out of this? Well, Orange hasn't played many demons, but he has just lost 2 Dread Infernals. So if he plays his Gul'dan, Swidz can't immediately play his. He's going to have to mess around getting rid of those Infernals first.
Swidz just picked up such a good hand. I mean, he had a decent hand.
But that goes back to what you were saying, is that Orange's game plan is to force Swidz to use his removal inefficiently. And part of doing that is keeping back your good stuff. Swidz knows this, so he kept back his Azalina to the last possible moment and had some of that aforementioned good stuff.
And one of the coolest things right now is Swidz knows the entirety of Orange's hand.
Yes.
So Swidz will know, hey, look, I can use these cards in this way because he doesn't have follow-up to it. I know his hand.
But Orange knows he knows, and he knows his hand. So
and
what
then
Orange has
Swidz
done,
knows that Orange knows that Swidz knows.
Wow.
They both know.
But it's chess at this point. So Orange's plan in this game of chess is basically make it so that Swidz has no sensible reply. And what does he do? If he kills the minions here, Orange gets to play Gul'dan and get loads of demons back. If he doesn't kill the minions, well, then he dies.
I hate to burst your bubble, but we're actually not playing chess. We're playing Hearthstone.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, to some extent. Sometimes people are doing both at once.
Those people are impressive, and I want to meet those people.
Peter Svidler does both at once. He reached Legend and, like, prepares for high-level tournaments at the same time.
That's absurd.
And he's, like, top 15 in the world.
That's absurd.
At chess and, like, 3-figure Legend number at Hearthstone at the same time.
Swidz going for the value there, understanding that, you know, can't really do much about this. Although I'm a little curious as to why Swidz just didn't Spellstone off the hooked Reavers. Even if Orange were to commit to Gul'dan on the following turn, he would have double Hellfire to clean up the board. I guess he's being very precautious because if he plays out his removal and Orange just follows it up with, say, something like Lich King, he will not have an answer to that. So I think that's what Swidz is being careful of. But Swidz had to double and triple check that math because he knows that double Hellfire is in the hand of Orange. And if double Hellfire were to come down right now, Orange would be 1 damage off lethal. So Swidz is willing to take this calculated risk.
They have both assumed the position of what is going on. Like, both deep in thought.
I mean, props to Swidz, though. He knew that even if Orange were to double Hellfire, it would weaken up the board and make better play for Swidz, but also that he could go down to 1 life and be fine.
Again, the sign of a strong control player, but this has just gone all sorts of crazy. Azalina games are nuts. Oh.
Dead man's hand onto a Warlock hand.
Onto a full hand, but has he got time to do anything about it?
I mean, to be honest, I think with this play, you just commit a Hellfire, you commit a Spellstone, you know that your opponent currently only has Spellstones and Bone Mare and Gul'dan in their hand.
Gul'dan's the problem, though. Those 2 Dread Infernals that have gone.
I think Gul'dan is the major problem, yes.
If Swidz can work out how to get through the first turn after Gul'dan, I think he's in the clear.
I think so as well.
But I don't know how you do that.
The issue is you can't really let that 7-2 hit you in the face once, and you don't really want the Lich King to stick around. You actually don't want any minion to stick around, just because.
But also, you want to get your 7/7s that aren't, because you've got 19 health, onto the board, so that you can get something back with your Gul'dan if you ever get the chance to play it.
That is true. I do think if you're Swidz here, you're not too concerned with them being 7/7s. I think 4/4s are fine, especially with how the game state's going, and Orange is going to need to be conscious to save his own removal for his opponent's Gul'dan.
Now, I don't see now why Orange doesn't just slam Gul'dan.
I think you have to at this point. Don't really have much you're working with.
And this is it. This is the point of the game that is absolutely crucial now. Can Swidz survive the next, like, 2 turns, or is he just going to fold up to this massive amount of damage?
I completely forgot about how much damage was in this Gul'dan. This game was going on so long that I completely neglected to remember that there are 2 Dread Infernals in here.
This is a big deal. This is what Swidz has been trying to avoid.
I mean, what answer can Swidz have?
And he's lost his 1-drops, remember, to the Geist, so there's no, like, whirlwind Hellfire shenanigans, which would be quite nice.
There's none of that, but there is access to Brawl still. I believe there is a second Brawl.
That's a good card right now.
I think that's probably one of the few and only cards. Could potentially go Shield Block and use...
Oh! Buys himself some more time.
Now talk about good cards right now. Dry Whisker Armor, you know, it isn't clearing this board state.
It's buying you the time
But
you need.
it's buying you the time you need to clear this board state. Even a Cornered Sentry, might as well put that taunt in the way as well.
Yeah, Abomination would be tasty for the next turn, I guess.
I mean, all you need right now is a Warpath, but I believe both of those are gone. Both of those were discarded with the Azalina effect. So right now, I think it's Brawl. There could be a Blood Razor to clear up the majority of the board.
I think he used them both.
But I believe I know he used at least one.
He used one very early, and then he used one a bit later,
yes,
I think.
he used both of those. So there's no Blood Razor. There's no Warpath. 7 cards left. It's another Dead Man's Hand.
At least one Brawl, probably two.
At least one Brawl. No, one of the Brawls was discarded from the Azalina.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually crazy how much went on this game that we're now remembering.
That was today?
Yeah, that matchup was today. How much damage does Orange have on the follow-up if he potentially wants to go for a Hellfire Spellstone? It's not quite enough.
The trouble is the Hellfire, he knows that Swidz has a Hellfire and he'll lose his board.
And he can't afford that. I wouldn't be surprised to 2/4s go in.
The Hellfire is the no, the Lich King is the marker, by the way, as to where the cards were stolen.
You mean the Lich King? Yeah. Lich King spell was.
That's
the Lich
where
King
Orange
spell,
knows
right.
to.
Swidz does not know that side of the hand, but Swidz will have known that there are 2 Hellfires and Spellstone and Bone Mirror left.
But Orange knows nearly all of Swidz's hand.
Yeah, Swidz knows that there's also 2 Hooked Reavers, a Hellfire, Spellstone.
And Orange also knows where the place is right now.
Yes, you want to be pushing this damage phase as much as possible. Even takes a trade to, you know, pseudo play around Brawl.
There it is!
There's the Brawl!
Do you shuffle it back in? Do you deadmans it?
I don't think so. I think you just Brawl.
This hand is a lot of resources for a grindy game.
I think you Brawl and Spellstone the minion left.
Okay.
I don't think you can afford to Dead Man's Hand it back. I know you would really like to, but the issue is, if you do not Spellstone the last minion, whatever it may be, you gave your opponent a Bone Mare target and you have no answer to it.
Okay. Good point. Well made.
And this way you force Bone Mare to come out onto, say, a 2-drop that, you know, Orange might not have.
He's looking at the Reaver, actually.
I think if it was the 6/6, you always Spellstone it, but I think with this one, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't think he knows 100% the Bone Mare's there. I think it stopped at the Lich King, so... Because he would have had his own Bone Mare that we haven't seen if it...
No, he played his own Bone Mare.
Oh, okay,
remember?
so he does know.
He does know Bone Mare's in there, but I think he's willing to say, hey, look, I don't necessarily need to Spellstone this specific minion. If it was a Dread Infernal, I think he would have Spellstoned it.
He has got himself up to 24. One small advantage, I know Orange has played Azalina plenty in Druid, but when you play Azalina a lot in a grindy deck, you're much more used to dealing with the craziness that comes from it.
That is true.
You know, Orange has got to work this out on the fly. So has Swidz. But Swidz will have all that mental organisation as to how to approach it because he'll have done this a million times.
And that's one of the important things about taking notes.
Yeah.
Is that when you see your opponent go ahead and do that, you know, it may seem a little silly at first that, you know, why is he writing down his whole hand? Like, he should be able to keep that in his head. But just writing down your own hand and looking down and saying, right, there was that card is very important.
Yeah, taking notes is absolutely key. It once cost me not getting to a top 8 of a big event, not taking notes. I took notes all day till the last game. I was too tired to bother. And I played around the 3rd Noble Sacrifice.
That's rough.
Because I thought there'd only been one played. And I punted completely out of the top 8 because of it.
Wouldn't be surprised to see Hellfire Spellstone here. Trade up. Clear up most of the board. I don't think the Dead Man's Hand will come out here. I think you'd rather fit in a Hero Power. But it's definitely difficult to say.
Yeah, the temptation is you've got a 7/7 option. So you've got to really think about it. But it doesn't seem that great, does it?
To be honest, Swidz could just go for Hooked Reaver and Spellstone onto the 8/8 and trade in. That way, you know, he has this daunting minion. He forces the Spellstone from Orange's side. And then he has 2 in the pool for Gul'dan later on. That could be a potential line of play. I think Swidz right now is debating whether or not he wants to shuffle this into the deck. I don't think he should, but he's definitely going to think about it. Why not?
And we were saying at the time, if he survives the early onslaught from the Gul'dan, and that onslaught has now been cleared up, Swidz is in great shot because he's got his own Gul'dan still to come.
And I believe that Orange was just attacked from the set.
Yeah. Set just collapsed on Orange. Hopefully he puts that out. He's a bit of a professional. Won one or two tournaments here and there.
Yeah, I think most players just kind of shrug that off.
Just all of the tournaments he plays, he wins. I'm not even going to list what Orange has won, but it's like a DreamHack Grand Prix, a different DreamHack, 2 seat stories. Came second in Gold Series, was probably a bigger achievement than any of that.
On and on and on. Does have the Obliterate, though. If he does want to answer it that way, he's got a lot of health to work with. Could start pushing that damage face, especially knowing that, you know, Warrior, although it's powerful, it doesn't quite have that same armor gain as the Odd Warrior. Just bring it on, though.
And now, I was saying that he's got through that onslaught, but it's not quite over.
Not quite just yet.
6 damage, 10, 17. I think Swidz is 2 off being dead if he plays Gul'dan now.
I think so as well. And Swidz knows the reach. One thing I would like to say is...
Oh no, he's dead if he plays it because the hero power kills him.
You're right. I would like to have seen potentially Orange make the minion placement a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because if he does play the...
If
he does play
the other Death Knight, Garrosh.
Garrosh, Scourge Lord, he would take 1 extra damage by putting into that Bone Mare.
Yeah. And there's so much going on, Orange probably forgot that Garrosh was one of the threats going on.
I think this might just be it for Swidz here.
Yeah, is the Lich King an out of any sort? No, probably not.
No, because you know there's Spellstone, there's most likely to File. I mean, that might be his only play to live, especially because Swidz knows that what's left in the deck.
He's going to play this in case he's miscounted, but he knows. I think he knows he's dead.
I think he knows as well. I think it's legitimately his only play, unless there's some demon with
There
taunt that we forgot about.
But that still dies to double Hellfire. Oh, it doesn't because you don't get through.
But then the Beetle wouldn't get through at that point, and yep.
Did I count wrong? No, and Orange is getting back to 2 games each.
Impressive play from Orange. I mean, Swidz, you know, I would say that this matchup is fairly weak to the Warlock, even though you can have this, you know, crazy potential to take it to Fatigue. Warrior doesn't have all of the answers it needs, and Gul'dan's hero power is just too much at times.
Could we see 2 reverse sweeps in the same round here in Montreal? Already seen Monsanto do it against Muzzy.
I definitely think we can. I mean, even Warlock is one of those decks. I feel like there are 3 decks that I would look out for to be the sweepers. I would say it's Quest Rogue, because if it wins against an aggro deck, it kind of just slides through.
And we've seen that happen.
We've seen that happen. I would say that Token Druid, because Token Druid, unless they have a hard counter to it, beats almost everything.
And we saw that just go 5-0. Well,
saw that happen
in the last match, yeah.
And then even Warlock, because it's one of the most all-around decks.
And we're 1 game from seeing that happen. Why don't you just bring that as a lineup? Even Warlock, Quest Rogue.
I think a lot of players have brought that. When players were talking to me about what lineup they should bring, that was the 3 decks I recommended
Token
alongside.
Druid, and I hope they ban your Topsy Priest.
You don't bring Topsy Priest. You don't bring Topsy Priest. I'm sure there are some players out there that would bring Topsy Priest.
Imagine if the set fell on you halfway through a Topsy turn.
I would not want to be in that seat when that happens.
Wow.
Next thing you know, your Vivid Nightmare just hovers over another
you
random
burned the
minion.
Topsy. And,
you burned the Topsy.
6. Yeah, it's just, everything just goes really badly wrong
And then
at
the
that
clips
point.
everywhere on the internet. Reddit's having a ball.
So what is Swidz actually playing? Have we got the list available anywhere?
I can go ahead.
I'll let you have a quick look.
I'm going to assume that it's some kind of either Malagos Druid or Togwaggle Druid.
Yeah, it's not Token because we can see the Naturalize. I'm going to guess that it's Togwaggle, possibly.
It is Togwaggle Druid. It is
Just
Aslina Soul Thief, Togwaggle Druid. It does not contain the Malagos package. It is packing 1 Starfall. It is packing 2 Mind Control techs. believe those are the most important key cards to note. Everything else is fairly standard. A deck I'm very fond of. I really like this deck.
I mean, if you're going to play Azalina Warrior, you might as well play Azalina actually good deck at the same time. I'm being so mean. That Warrior deck has served very good time for the French community in particular.
I think it's a very hard deck to play.
Yeah.
It's maximum efficiency.
And how do you practice it?
Not many people want to practice.
You just set aside 10 hours for your first game, lose, and you think, I don't want to play another game.
And Orange here is playing very aggressive. Typically, you see those life taps come in to try and find that giant. But if Orange was keeping track, he would have seen Swidz full keep and not play a Wild Growth on 2, which means Nourish, Naturalize, Ultimate Infestation. So I would not be surprised if Orange already knows Swidz's entire hand.
I mean, bad things happen if you tap into Giant's plate and it gets naturalized. You overdraw for 1, your Giant's dead, and you've done nothing for 3 turns for another. So he's trying to get that as quickly as possible sorted out by hitting Swidz in the face.
And Orange will know that Mind Control Tech is in the list. So he does potentially play with fire if he decides to dedicate the Twilight Drake to the board this turn.
Yeah, and Spreading Plague at some point will be...
That's another card.
Problem.
I don't think that one is necessarily as big of a problem because you will have the Dread Inferno for the follow-up. But you know there are 2 Mind Control Techs in the list.
A Skulking Geist is a massive deal here.
That is a massive tech card for Orange right now.
Taking those naturalizers away makes Togwaggle Druid so difficult to have a win condition of any sort.
It is true, but just swapping and fatigue sometimes isn't enough.
Yeah. But when you've done it, now your Mountain Giant can come down.
I didn't know you could cancel that still.
I didn't see that. What
It looked like you played the Malfurion, but then it got canceled.
Oh.
I thought as soon as you committed it to the board, you had to pick.
What?
Or maybe it was just some kind of
Definitely on some of the
crazy thing.
the pick ones you have to pick when you play them.
Yes, I believe that. I thought that was one of them, but I could be wrong.
And obviously this will open up the Giant as soon as the Geist is played.
The circle of life is over.
I believe the Geist will come down. The only issue with playing the Geist here is you force yourself into Mind Control Tech range.
Yeah.
Which...
And Swidz has made it so that they can't kill off his own minions just in case that was coming to, but
yeah.
You just take that chance, right, because it's such a big deal getting rid of those naturalizers.
You definitely have to.
It's worth more than the minion you're going to probably lose.
Especially because you will reassure that a Mountain Giant comes down and cannot be answered by
and then Mind Control
anything.
Tech's been played.
Kind of the best of both worlds, I guess. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mind Control Tech here come down, hopefully take that Twilight Drake. And then a Wild Growth come out with the intent to play Ultimate Infestation on the next turn.
Got to be, yeah. Are you ever going to get another Mind Control Tech against a good player? But the other, there's not just the only question, because if you play it, you give them the license to go wide for the longest time. Then you might want them to go wide because you've got Spreading Plague in hand.
That's the one unique part about Druid is that, does get the best pick. That's the one unique part about Druid is that even if you go, even if they go wide, you almost don't matter. You almost don't mind because you have Spreading Plague branching paths. And that right there is just good enough at times.
Yeah, the combination is so powerful.
However, Orange is going to be allowed to play this Mountain Giant without worrying too much. Now, there are 2 Mind Control Techs in the list for Swidz, so Orange will be conscious of that. But I definitely think this Mountain Giant is coming down no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you've given yourself the best chance to play it. I guess you might wait till UI's been played first.
You could wait for that, but...
I don't know if you would, but that's the only thing he's got to consider.
I mean,
Going into that UI turn, maybe just wait 1 turn if you think you can get away with it, put something else around.
Orange is going to be very conscious that the most powerful play next turn is Ultimate Infestation. There is some potential for playing out that Dread Infernal, clearing up the minion, then pushing a little bit of damage face. Orange is close to ending this game. Swidz is at only 21 life right now.
Yeah, it's not that he's on. That doesn't sound low, but it is low because of the amount of attack on the board. It's over half of 21 already. Like I'm over double 21. You're 21, right?
Yeah.
Still? Thought you were.
21 still. You're 23 still, right?
Yep.
Good to know.
It's giving people clues for tomorrow's upcoming quiz.
Right. Pop quiz. Swidz there making the most powerful play in Druid right now, just getting that ultimate infestation down and online. And there you see the full combo. Is almost assembled.
His 2/3 assembled the full combo.
Yeah, the 3-card combo. Wait, there are 4 parts. The 4th part is drawing your entire deck.
Yeah.
That one's always last.
Yeah, that's the easy bit.
You think that's the easy bit?
It's Druid. Everything says draw a card or draw
Fair
a
enough.
card. The hard bit is like dying. Druid doesn't do that very well. But it might do in this game. Orange is putting on a lot of pressure. And he's held onto this giant very carefully, but it might be time to finally let it loose.
Yeah, I almost wouldn't be surprised to see a life tap come out.
The trouble is
Giant
now he's
come out.
scared of Giggling Inventor next turn, which means he might want to defile, which means his giant's in danger again.
Just going to go ahead and defile here.
It's 4 damage that the giant can't take when it gets played. And he was going to go for Twilight, but maybe he's now considering, look, when does this giant come down? But he's being super patient.
Yeah, I'm curious to why Orange is being so patient with this giant.
I mean, your opponent's just played a UI, so whatever answer is in your head, and I don't know which one he's thinking, but it'll be there.
And typically, burning the twig would be very bad if you were in Swid's position. However, Swidz knows that, you know, there's obviously weapon destruction inside of Orange's deck that Orange will be holding on to. Not anymore because he's seen the twig burn. But you don't need the twig anymore for the combo. You just need Dream Petal Florist, and it's going to reduce either Azalina or that Togwaggle down to 0 or 1 mana.
But Orange will be happy. Some people just want to see the twig burn.
That's what twigs are good for.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
burning.
Another thing Orange will be trying to do here is give Swidz very little to work with if he only has like a Tog swap. Constantly saying he hasn't got to worry about the naturalized burn, which is nice for him.
That is true. As long as he, you know, make sure he doesn't ever put 10 cards in his hand to burn a card. I don't think Orange would ever do that, and he's never really in a spot to do that. Something you do need to be conscious about when playing against this deck. Because sometimes they don't necessarily need to Azalina the card back. They just sometimes naturalize and take your deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen people miss that because they're trying too hard to be clever instead of just going, I'll just win the game. Well, this was why I think Orange didn't play the giant last turn. This is just a much easier board to
That is true.
face off against a Giggling Inventor than the giant was. But he does need to get it down sometime soon, or he's just not going to get the damage in.
The addition of Bone Mare into this Even Warlock does make it much stronger against decks like Druid. Just classes like Druid in general, there's not really many ways that, you know, they can really deal with a Bone Mare. It's just such a powerful play onto the board, even still being at 8 mana.
I think this is where Orange has got so much better over the last, say, 18 months. His concentration levels are up there with the best. He's meticulous in his planning these days. He still makes mistakes, but he's so careful not to.
That's just something you want to ask for from, you know, the best Hearthstone players is, although, you know, everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes, it's those players that make the least amount of mistakes that you really see highlighted.
Yeah, it's definition of mistake these days. I mean, sometimes people call a mistake something that's just not a mistake. It's just like a slight misplay or whatever.
And the one trend I see from all the professional players that just separate them from everyone else is after every single game, even if, you know, they played it to the best of their ability,
Yep.
they sit there afterwards and they ask their friends and they say, what did I do wrong that game? Or I was concerned with this turn, what do you think?
That's the best ones for me when I hear people talking about that.
And all the top players do it.
And they've stopped talking about right or wrong a lot of the time these days as well. What you said second there, the what do you think here, is so important because the game is getting complex enough now that people don't know what's right or wrong, only what feels right and what feels wrong. You know, in a lot of situations, sometimes it's just wrong to do certain things, obviously.
Of course. But sometimes, you know, there are very convoluted answers to puzzles that you need to figure out.
Yeah, very much so. Like, what on earth do you do when your opponent's got Azalina in their hand? I don't know. I can see the Azalina in the hand. So how are they meant to know? Tell you how. It's because they're good.
The cream of the crop.
And we have... I feel a bit sorry for some of the players here so far. I mean, the quality we've had in the first 3 rounds of Swiss, where, let's face it, there's quite a lot of casual people who like to play Hearthstone tournaments. They come to the DreamHack for the event, have a look round, play a bit of Hearthstone, expect to play a couple of pros, lose, and then carry on looking around the event. We have just seen top quality players against each other in all 6 matches so far. There's just every single player has been a known player. How do you like turning up and playing purple in round 1 when you wanted to play against, you know, Johnny Nobody?
Hey, don't mess with Johnny Nobody.
His stats aren't very good. I can pick on Johnny Nobody.
I've interviewed Johnny Nobody, and Johnny Nobody is a very powerful Hearthstone player.
Hey, but he wasn't at the time. You were just nice to him.
Okay, fair enough.
He was just rubbish, really.
Don't call Johnny Nobody. First you're dissing Innkeeper. Now you're just...
I'm mean.
Talking about my boy, Johnny Nobody.
Yeah.
How would you feel if someone called you Lorinda
Nobody?
Nobody.
I'll check chat when I get back, and I'm sure I'll be fine. Hi, chat. How you doing?
My thoughts are plagued.
Meanwhile, we just had a discussion for about 15 minutes about Johnny Nobody, and it's still Swidz' turn.
I mean, these turns are very crucial for both these players. They're going to be taking the maximum allocated time just to make sure that they are optimizing each and every plays. And you see there, Swidz already has the majority of the combo, is even going to burn cards, picks up that Florist. That was important, because if he did not pick up that Florist, it would have been very difficult to do that combo. But I believe Orange is almost fatiguing at this point as well.
Yeah, Orange has done a good job of going through his deck quickly, but Swidz is down to just the 3 cards now.
I think that's why Swidz went for that Ultimate Infestation play. It was not because he needed to clear up that Giant. He had multiple, you know, ways to either delay or answer. I think it was because if he does not get this combo going quickly, Orange is just going to draw his entire deck before he does. And then the combo does nothing.
So why have I got this combo? I don't need it. He's fatigued himself for me. Down to 2 cards. So this game is going to spring to life like a young gazelle in just a moment.
What?
They spring and they're lively and it's all happy and joy and fun and we find out who wins. Yeah.
That's not my picture of gazelles. My picture is it getting ran down by a cheetah.
You're from Texas, right? Or Georgia or somewhere?
From Virginia.
Yeah, same thing to a Brit.
Not the same thing. Maybe to a Brit, but it's not the same thing. Can't believe you, Lorinda.
Like you have like USA and all the states, then just Europe with a P on the end. We have like South America, Northern America, and the big wide bit in the middle where no one lives, and that's it. That's what America looks like.
You're not wrong. Swidz there can opt to go for the Feral Rage and play out the Dream Petal Florist. But at that point, he's hoping that, you know, the Dream Petal Florist does answer something.
You've got to feel sorry for these players, right? He'll go home tonight and go, I'll check the VOD of my match. Wonder what they were saying about me. We're talking about, like, the southern states of America during a deeply complicated turn where he's trying to put his tournament life into a better position.
I think he had to go for this play here.
Yeah.
I think the reason he didn't Feral Rage that turn, because it did seem a little bit off, why wouldn't you Feral Rage that for more armor that turn, was because if he Feral Rages that turn and he whiffs on the Dream Petal Florist, then he starts to go into fatigue quicker than he typically would.
He's taking so much damage now.
I am a little curious about that Feral Rage, though. Maybe there's another minion in the deck we're neglecting to remember and he didn't want to draw it.
Most likely.
I think that was most likely it. I mean, we're going to see what the next 2 draws.
But Orange has got the Gul'dan into play, which means that Swidz has numerous problems to solve.
And there you see right there, just that recognition from not playing the Feral Rage and armoring up. It seemed very weird at first, but he had a 50% chance to draw that minion in order to decrease the odds.
And now he gets to protect the Florist for a while.
Oh, but this he has to be very careful with this. Because if he does not play this Florist first, then it will become a mind control tech.
Then it will become a giggling inventor.
He might just be fine with double mind control tech.
Double mind control tech, double giggling, take your pick.
Engaging TC-130, mental dislocator.
Yeah, he's happy with this.
He's happy with this. Just wants to take the board as much as possible.
Engaging TC-130, mental
Oh, and
and
he
he
gets
gets
the
the
big
two
boy.
biggest picks there.
Death is eternal.
I think the only thing would have been better is if you get that Dread Infernal over the Bone Mare, but getting that Twilight Drake is huge. And that Dream Petal Florist lives for one more turn, so
Yeah.
just throw whatever I was saying out the window
I've already done
earlier.
that,
Thank
yeah.
you, Lorinda. I'm sure
Sitting there
everyone
with the
in chat
trash,
has.
with the dead gazelles and all that sort of stuff.
For some reason, you know, typically when you play out that Flippiness Floop, you want to try and make sure you play that first because you want that minion, but he
Yeah.
already had it on board, so it doesn't matter.
So many
Now he's just threatening to
bloody
just kill Orange for no particular reason. Obviously, Orange has the perfect answer here. This answers so much of the things that are about to happen to him.
And the crazy thing about this is if he goes for the Doom Pack now, not only does it gets rid of his entire deck,
Yeah.
it means Switz's combo does nothing at this point. It just takes Orange's hand.
And you can't take the Gul'dan because you just played it. And yeah, Swidz
I'm out of cards.
has just assumed the oops. You can't play around that. It's a 1 in whatever, 7.
So now the question is, if you are Swidz here, do you go for a pressure route, or do you try and maximize the utilization of these cards? I think you have to go
Tangled web.
for some kind of pressure
You've
route
got to
here.
find some way of generating, damage, and this is the only way. People forget sometimes that Togwaggle is a 5/5. It's a minion with some sort of attempt of killing you.
And now both players are playing with the exact same hand. But the one thing going for Orange right now is that he has much more life.
Yeah, and his
Much
hero power is
stronger hero
precisely
power.
twice as good. He doesn't have to decide whether he wants 3 health or attack each turn. He just gets them both. Swizz, pick half of your opponent's
My
hero power
thoughts
every turn.
are plagued.
Perhaps Aslina should copy that too.
Death
And then
is
next
eternal.
turn, I mean,
My
Swidz
turn
knows that
is not.
Orange has a full clear onto the board, no matter what. He
Yeah.
does.
And he can't win the game if he doesn't keep the tempo ever, obviously, so he's got to keep a head on board every time. Means he's got to make Orange spend all of his mana every turn to make sure he gets the minion down first each time. But there is only a Mountain Giant left whilst talking about minions.
So what Orange can do here is Orange can swing the Ooze Face. I definitely think you want to get that Acidic Swamp Ooze Face. Can then Hellfire, potentially Spellstone the Togwaggle if he chooses to do so. That's a bit riskier because he wants to save the Spellstone for, say, the Giant on the other end. That way he has an answer to that. But he has to calculate, you know, how does Swidz die over the next couple turns? If he goes for a play where he clears up, doesn't play a minion, and keeps hero powering the face, does he win in fatigue? I believe he does. I wouldn't be opposed to see Orange play no minions here,
Yeah.
because it gives Swidz a target for the Spellstone, whereas previously he would have to Spellstone his own minion.
Swidz is in so much trouble because Orange also has Spellstones. And Swidz is taking that fatigue and he doesn't have the health gain if he's going to use his attack. And that's the thing, Orange is worth 6 points a turn for his hero power. Swidz is worth 3. So he can only win if he ever sticks this Mountain Giant.
I don't think it ever gets stuck. Swidz knows that right now in Orange's hand, he has
My thoughts
the
are
Spellstone
plagued.
and his own Giant.
Remember, this represents lethal. Swidz takes 2 points of fatigue next turn. Hero power and just this pesky ooze is 6 damage. That would be enough.
Does give Swidz a target for the Spellstone, however.
It does.
But I don't think Orange is that unhappy
Don't
about
think he
that.
cares.
I mean, if Orange really wanted to, he could just go Spellstone the Giant,
Yeah, and I'll
Play
just pick
the-
off the little bits and pieces at my leisure.
play the Beetle and the Sun Fury, and then hero power face. Swidz can't Hellfire because he would die.
Yeah, once this giant dies, both players have the same stuff going on, and
one of the hero powers is much stronger.
yeah, and one player has 17 more health than the other. And it's the same person who has the good hero power. And I think Orange, you can see from how he's looking, I think he knows he's got this. Swidz is desperately trying to work out like you do. Well, I have attacker's advantage. Is there anything I can do with this attacker's advantage? So he's gone as wide as he can to try and use that. He might get a little bit of damage out of it. Orange can't win the game this turn.
Doesn't win the game this turn, but I'm pretty sure Orange has this locked up. Could just Spellstone, trade off the minion hero power face.
I love watching the things the top players do to try and generate a way to win. Like the way Swidz thought about that and then go, okay, the way I win is get damage from my minions. How do I get damage from my minions? Knowing that the giant can't live, I know. Play more minions.
Might as well.
Really obvious when you word it like that, but that's how he's trying to generate this advantage. Why bother working out all the fatigue when you know you've probably lost? Just, you know, you calculate it, you think you've lost, just make sure you've lost, do what he's doing here. But now Orange just has to ping these last two minions off the board and he'll win in fatigue.
Yeah, he could have honestly just pinged face as well. I think at this point it didn't matter. I think he was winning fatigue no matter what. If he had pinged face, then, you know, he would have to Hellfire to kill off the Beetle, or he'd have Spellstone to kill off the Beetle.
And now I think we'll see the play you were talking about where Orange just never plays another minion. He'll just clear these two up over the next two turns and
why not?
That's it, game over.
Much rather prefer the hero power onto the Acidic Swamp Ooze.
Yeah, because it's one less damage he's taking.
Damage.
Yeah, that seems weird.
I think it was because he's going to taunt up the Beetle, and that way it trades into it.
Yeah.
It's not... I don't think it matters at this point.
It's like,
semantics.
It's giving Swidz some extra damage. But Swidz has done the maths. He knows he can't win. And Orange, a reverse sweep. 2 reverse sweeps in the same round. 5 games won by Token Druid, followed by 5 games won with Evenlock.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of some of these decks. I told you the decks to look out for. Quest Rogue swept, Token Druid swept, and even Warlock has now swept. All 3 of those decks are very powerful decks. Even Warlock for being just proficient against most matchups, all matchups. Token Druid for just being very explosive. And Quest Rogue for being Quest Rogue.
What do you do as a player when you've just been the last person to finish in the round like that, and you're like, all right, ready for the next round?
You kind of have to take it
you don't have a choice,
strides. You have to sit there and you have to say, you know what, it was a long round, it was a fatiguing round as a player, but you have to, at the end of the day, just kind of brush it off, get ready for the next round. Just because you lost right now, you're still 2-1 at this point. You still got a reasonable chance at making that top cut. You can't let the losses earlier on kind of dictate how your run's going to go. I've seen a lot of players just, you know, lose round 1. I myself have lost round 1 and then proceeded to go the entire tournament undefeated for the rest.
Do you play game 1 a bit more slowly next round just because you're so tired and just try and get yourself back together?
I think you can implement methods like that, but I think the most important thing in Hearthstone that a lot of players tend to neglect is just, you know, having that anti-tilt, that just frustration factor, and saying, you know what, sometimes, you know, it's not your day. Sometimes, you know, it's just not your game. You sit there, you play out the match. If lineup kind of beats yours, you kind of accept it. And then afterwards, at the end of the day, you know, you just keep playing, you just keep grinding it out, and eventually you'll get there.
Well, I should imagine there are not many games left in this round. That was 2 long matches. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with round number 4 as soon as we can.